Hello, my name is Bradley and I'm your host of The Internal Game. Okay, so I just want to clear up. The other day I made a video and then I mentioned that I had intended for more male clients, right? But I didn't mean only male clients. So I did get an email about that. So yes, all is welcome to book, right? I just was saying that I had intended on, working with more males. But yeah, males and females is all great. I don't mind. Book away, right? Anyway, so today I want to talk about circumstances do not matter. Why do they not matter? I'm sure we hear this all the time. Circumstances do not matter. Okay, but why? Well, it's because they're only reflection. That's it, right? They're not there on their own accord. They're not there because the universe or God is testing his toughest, giving his toughest battles to his toughest soldiers or anything like that, right? They're just literally reflections. That's it. So this is good news. Because if you do not like the circumstance, all you need to know is that it's coming from you. And if you change how you're being, then the circumstances must also change. So the kicker here is we try to change circumstance. We focus on circumstance. And that's not what we need to be doing because, again, the circumstance is just reflection. So when we're trying to affirm differently for the person or money, whatever the case, let's stick to person, for the person, and it feels unnatural, right? And we're like, man, but I'm affirming this and it seems like a lot, and then you get the thoughts that are opposite of that, and then you get pulled and you gotta affirm opposite of the negative thought, and it just tends to be a bit gunky, right? So the idea is to get into a state of being, because that's all that's happening, is to get into a state of being, a way of being predominantly that you in person is a natural byproduct, is a natural reflection. Because we're not trying to change them. We're not trying to change anything else. There's no one to change but self, literally. So if we're in an identity, think about that, identity, something we've identified with. And actually what it is a mind-made self, like a self-concept, the concept of self. A mind-made self. Thoughts that you believe about self, and then you say, this is who I am. And then you see a world that is reflected from this identity, this mind-made self. It's created a bunch of gunk, and it helped you, or not helped you, but I mean it allows you to look at the world in a really shitty way because you're looking at yourself in a really shitty way, and now you got all this stuff and you're like, I want this to change. And then we get really, really, really worked up because you're like, I need this to change now so I feel better, so I feel safe, so I feel validated, so I feel chosen, so I feel wanted. I need those things to change. I need to change. That person needs to tell me this, so I'm going to affirm for this. When really, no one to change but self. We want to disidentify with this whole thing, this identity, this way of being that created all this, right? And then get ourselves into another, a different way of being where it's natural for you to be in relationship with this person, where it's natural for you to be loved and chosen and be made a priority and all these great things, right? So again, circumstances do not matter because all that you're seeing is just a reflection of how you've been being. It's good news. Now another tricky part is the old self, the identity, trying to change the old self and then buying back into it. That's why you hear me say things all the time like just a thought, right? Because that's what they are. They're thoughts about yourself that you believe to be true. And from these thoughts, there's other thoughts that are kind of in the same ballpark and alignment with this identity. And then it views the world this way, and it creates all little meanings in alignment with this kind of identity. So when you stop identifying with this way, you actually have choice to view anew, right? To be anew and look upon the world and self favorably. But until then, you don't really have as much choice as you think because you're identified with mind. You're identified with a mind-made self. So what's natural when you're is, oh man, they're gonna leave. Oh man, they're not coming back. Oh man, they're doing this. That's more of a natural state. That's why the whole circumstance happened in the first place, because that was natural to that state of being, to that identity. It's a byproduct. The circumstance is a byproduct of how you're being. That's it. So. And it doesn't feel natural at that point to affirm they love me. That's why when you get the one negative thought, you're like, fuck, I have to affirm, 20 times, 30 times to combat this. But really what's happening is you're believing this thought. So now you're saying, oh my God, I'm scared it's going to manifest, so I have to affirm the opposite. Well, the idea is to get to a place where you stop believing these thoughts. Because when you stop believing the thoughts that are coming from this identity, you're going to start to disidentify with this identity that created all this unwanted circumstance. That was natural for that type of identity. And you do this by, like, when you get a thought, that's just a thought. And what this looks like is like, you're sitting there and person comes to mind, maybe some self-doubt, which is still just a thought that you believe, but like thoughts that aren't ideal, you say that's just a thought. And you're like, oh, but it seems really important. No, that's just a thought. Yeah, but like, what if this happened? That's just a thought. Don't worry too much about flipping it. Just start to disidentify with this way of being. That's the priority, because all that's happening is that. And the more that you try to force the opposite, the more chaotic you're going to feel, because like Alan Watts said, wanting a positive experience is a negative experience. State of being is king, right? So wanting something is implying that you're not it. So when you're in a state of trying to manifest, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to manifest this person and affirm for them loving you and only you, and you're the only person they think about, and all this stuff, you're trying to change the person at that point, because you're trying to feel safe. You're trying to get them to validate you and to comfort you and to choose you, so you finally feel chosen, because right now you're out of sorts, right? So when you stop buying into thought that created this whole thing, you're going to find stability and actually have a choice to choose anew, like I was saying. And then you start being a priority in your life, doing things you like to do. Telling a new story how you want it to be, as if it's happening now, right? Just like, and you actually have choice to do so, because you're not being pulled and fighting, because you're gently disidentifying with this state of being, or with this identity. You're gently disidentifying with it. That's a thought. That's just a thought. That's just a thought. I don't care how important it seems. It's important because you've been believing it, and you've thought that that's who you were, and it just seems natural to think that way. That's it. It's not true. It's not anything like that. It's just that you have lived that way for a long time, thinking those thoughts for a long time. And now you want your person to change, or you want things to change, you want your person back, and trying to think the opposite of that is not natural. So when you stop buying into these thoughts, you're going to feel stable. You tell a new story of how you want things to be as if they're happening now. You start to actually be a priority instead of affirming for it. Be it, right? Be it, which is going to be easier to do when you're not trying to manifest, because you're going to feel safe right now. You're not going to feel like you're obsessing over something, because you're not buying into thought that's making you think that you need something to feel safe or be chosen. You're not in this identity anymore at that point. You've shifted. And guess what happens when you shift? The world shifts, because you are your world, right? So when you actually start being a priority, and you're actually spending time that you would normally spend on trying to manifest, you're spending this time hanging out with friends, working on goals, doing hobbies, learning something, going to the gym, whatever the case may be. But 100% with you being the star of your own show, right? And then from this state of being, guess what's natural? The person to treat you with some respect and as a priority. Guess what's natural when you're in a place of safety and love and self and confident? Not identify with this old way anymore. It's actually an old self now, instead of like, oh, I just keep getting pulled to the old self. Remember, something's not old if you're still doing it. So you actually have to make this identity an old self by not buying into the thoughts. Actually make it old, right? And then, so yeah, when you're in these type of states, being chosen, choosing yourself, doing things you love to do, just being a priority in your life, what's natural is what's natural for that is what you want, because that's the end state. Not worried. I'm sure you've heard people say, I know I used to hear them say, like, manifest a cup of coffee. Prove to yourself that this law works. Okay. And then you do it, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna do something a little crazy. Manifest like someone's hair, or like a orange car or something, right? And then you do it, you're like, oh, cool. Now why can't I do it with my person? And it's like, well, these things are just alike. It's just that, like, you have a bunch of story with person as to why it's not gonna happen. You have a bunch of story to yourself of why you're not gonna be chosen, all this stuff. And with the coffee and the fucking car, you didn't. You just said that's how it was gonna be. You're gonna see it, and then you did. So a lot of this whole thing is just dropping the story. So dropping this identity, right? So you can actually live your life the same way, and think about person and think of it the same way you do a fucking orange car or a cup of coffee. Okay, that's done. Don't entertain a bunch of story. Live my life, be a priority, actually be it, because this type of being, this way of being matters as well. And it has a reflection as well. And that reflection looks way different than one that's trying to manifest a person, trying to change a person on the outside, trying to affirm for them to do something different so you feel safe, which is implying that you're not safe. So because we're all connected, they feel you. And also, when you're not safe, you're viewing the lens through not being safe, or viewing the world in person and everything through not being safe, and you're going to create little meanings that you don't want to transpire, but they're going to, right? Because you keep on with not feeling safe and giving everything meaning in accordance to the state. So when you're actually you're actually in a safe state, guess what? You're in a place of actually being a person who's instead of trying to get it, you're actually being this person who would already have the relationship, who would already have the money. That's the game here. Right? You're not changing anything out there. You're disidentifying with whatever created that out there. And then because you disidentify with this identity, disidentify from the identity, disidentify from the identity. Because you disidentify with it, it can no longer exist for you. It's not gonna be there anymore. You're gonna get a whole new reflection for how the new way of being, an actual new way of being, because you're living it. You're being a priority. You're not buying into old story. It's literally old story at that point, because you're not being it anymore. And you're not scared of thought, because you've already proved to yourself that it's just a thought. You're choosing self, loving self, realizing the stuff's within. And then the outside is because it's a byproduct, it just shapes into you. But that's it. That's why circumstances don't matter. But you're not trying to change the circumstance. You're going to disidentify with what made the circumstance, with what the circumstance was a reflection of. And then you're going to get into a new place, whatever you choose to do, like whatever story you want to tell, but mainly safe and stable by not buying into this old identity and telling a new story, and you're going to see a different reflection, because it's always been just reflection. But like when you're just being a priority, when you're being basically the opposite of how you've been being, you're going to get opposite results, because it's just reflection. It's a game of reflection. It's a game it's a state game. So instead of trying to force a new identity, why don't you just start to disidentify with the one that you're in that created all this stuff? Realize the illusion of all the shit things that you think about yourself, because you don't really have choice as long as you identify with it. If you identify with a way of being, and especially identify with just mind and thought in general, and just believing every thought that you get, then you don't have choice. You're ran by mind, because you think you are mind. So when you start to say that's just a thought, that's just a thought, that's just a thought, then this little mind-made self, this little bitty mind-made self that doesn't think too good of himself or herself or anything else for that matter, it starts to dwindle, it starts to weaken. So the thoughts start to weaken, and they don't come like that, and you'll feel a lot more stable, and you'll see things just drop away that used to be there, but they're not really bothering you, because you're not really going to be reacting too much. Why would you? You need to buy into shit. You've already proven yourself that when you stop buying into thought. And then to literally be anew means that you're going to see anew. There's going to be a whole new reflection out there. It's not about them. Never has been, never will be. It's about you. So take the focus away from trying to manifest and being in this, like, I'm not saying you're obsessed, maybe you're in a different place, I'm saying, like, this need to try to get something to feel a certain way. Drop the thoughts of this even being a reason why you want this person, and you need to happen now. Drop those thoughts, drop all those thoughts in that type of identity. You're going to naturally be safe, because that's what you are. And then make yourself a priority in your own life. But nothing is like, nothing says I love myself or I'm a priority more like than not buying into bullshit thought about self. So start there, and then you can do all the other stuff, and then you will see a different reflection for sure. A different set of circumstances that are just byproducts of this new, more favorable way of being, where it's natural to think that somebody likes you, where it's natural to think that somebody's going to be committed, where it's natural to think that like you're chosen, or it's natural to think you're going to get the promotion, natural to think that like that there's opportunity, because why would they not? You're the best choice. Things like that, where it's natural. But as long as you're in the old identity that created all this stuff, those thoughts don't seem natural. So disidentify with that. Step into the new. Love you guys. See you soon.